Yeah, please start.
Hello, everybody, to this week's developer session. Our agenda this week is to talk a little bit, recap a little bit the DAO launch, and then the main issue will be protection features which we are planning to implement for us against the chargeback scammer. Yeah, the good news, the DAO launch all went pretty well. There was just a minor issue with block propagation, that only full nodes create blocks and distribute blocks, and the light nodes were not forwarding those blocks. We fixed this then quickly with the 1.01 release. And it still needs a little bit until most people have updated, because when you're connected with other peers who are using an old version, you don't get, they're not part of the DAO network. They don't know about the blocks and will not distribute it. So as soon as most people have updated, this propagation issue with the blocks should be resolved. There are also a few other improvements which will be released with the next release. And to mitigate the problem is when you see that your application keeps synchronizing the DAO, is when you have the progress bar on the bottom and it keeps animating, that it means that there is a new block detected from Bitcoin Core, but you have not received the block from the BISC network, the BSQ block. And the only way at the moment is to restart the application, then it should be fine again. If it's still not there, it sometimes happens that you also don't get it from the arbitrator, from the seed nodes, but that's very rarely. A restart at the moment is the cure against this problem. And hopefully in 1 or 2 weeks, this problem is gone at all. Besides that, there was no major incident. It seems works pretty well. Trading is quite active and organic. It seems that quite a few people are using it already for paying the trading fee. So basically, it was all a success, and we would have had a big reason to celebrate and take a little bit of break and so on. But unfortunately, this fucking chargeback scammer, stolen bank account scammer, who started trading on BISC roughly around, I think, 11th or 10th of April are the first trades. And we got the first reports just 1 or 2 days before the DAO launch. He make our life a pain at the moment. And I mean, it seems that he has stopped. It seems that he has only used mainly 2 accounts and 1 or 2 other accounts, but there are only one cases with those other accounts. So the total damage so far is roughly 10,000 euro, what he could cash out, where the trade was already completed and he got the Bitcoin. We are reimbursing everybody. They should send back the money. And when you had a trade with the scammer, so far we know he used only one online address. We have a few other online addresses which are suspicious, which are also blocked, but are probably not the scammer, probably false positives. So we try to undo the damage and take it on our shoulders, the damage, to not create damage for innocent people who got stolen their bank account, and the scammer managed to cash it out by using BISC. We got some banks' account got closed from some users. Some have rejected already the chargeback, so it's now difficult to go back to the bank and say, no, I would like to accept it now. So it's not 100% clear if all the cases can be basically be undone in a way that the victim get the money back. But at least it's what our intention is, and what we tell the users. They should try all the best to send back the money and accept the chargeback request, that at least the innocent user doesn't lose money. Hopefully it doesn't go on. I mean, it seems that we have stopped him. We blocked I don't want to specify what exactly we have blocked to not give him hints, but we blocked a wider range of accounts and regions, so it will be hard for him to continue. In the worst case, we need to go further and block whole SEPA when he would really extend to other countries and so on. But so far, it seems that he has only used one online address and certain accounts, and that he probably has stopped so far. But we put all our efforts to think hard about further protection tools. And thanks to Manuel, he came up with 3 very strong ideas, which two of them I've started implementing. One idea is to delay the payout. That was basically a part of the old trade protocol, but then it was also with a time lock payout. It was always set to 0, so there was no delay, but we could have activated it that at the payout, when the seller confirms the receipt, that there would have been a delay for the payout, also based on the Bitcoin protocol. We removed this because it required an extra step in the trade protocol, so that added more risk that messages didn't arrive and so on. And in this time, we thought that at the end we will probably never need it and use it. Maybe it was a little bit too early, but on the good side, we have a better solution or easier solution to implement, to just do it on the UI, basically, that the seller, when he confirms the receipt, doesn't sign the payout, but depending on the account age of the buyer, the real payout where the transaction gets created will be delayed, and the seller need to come back after a few weeks or so, depending on the age, and do another button click to do then the real payout when the account age of the peer is mature enough that we consider it not risky that it's a chargeback scammer. So with that, it's not a protocol change. We can implement it on the UI alone. And it's already 80% implemented. There's still a few things missing. So that was quite the easy fix to add some protection. It still has the weakness that the scammer could create, also when he has a stolen bank account, he could set up an account in Bisq. From this time, the account age witness starts to count. And he's not using the stolen bank account, so it doesn't get discovered. And after 1 month, when this limitation is not active anymore, then he would start to cash out, and then there would not be a delay anymore. To get a protection against this, there's a second proposal, which is a little bit more complex. It's basically a decentralized reputation system where we start the arbitrators assigning all the past traders who have completed a fiat trade. So when the fiat was really transferred to the seller, and when this trade happened 2 months ago or older, then we can be sure that there have not been a chargeback. Otherwise, it would have been detected already. And we can assume all those traders have a valid bank account. They are not stolen bank account scammers. And the arbitrators will sign their account age witness object. Maybe I give a little bit of background about the account age witness. The account age witness is a hash which is created from the important account details, like the IBAN, bank account number, name, and such stuff, as well as a salt to add more privacy, as well as the hash of the public key, which was used for signing the data, and the date. Also, yeah, the hash is only this, and together with the date when it was published, it gets distributed to the network. It has an extra feature, a date tolerance protection, that when you are creating your account, you are sending out to the network this hash basically with the current date, and all the other peers are storing this data in a band-only data structure, as in a hash map, and they are only added to this hash map if the date what you are putting into the object is not far away from your local date. So you cannot backdate. Otherwise, a scammer could create an account, manipulate the data, and say the account was created 1 month ago, and we think then the account age is 1 month and it's invalid. But every peer in the network would reject this, because then it sees, okay, it receives such an object from the network. The object says it's 1 month old, but yeah, it's outside of this tolerance. There's a short, or I think 1 day's tolerance window, because yeah, we don't have time synchronization. It can be that the local date of the user is an hour off to my local date or whatever, and also the traveling through the peer-to-peer network can take a few seconds at least. But to avoid this all, and we don't need to have super accuracy, because I mean the account age doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 days old. It matters if it's 1 week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks old. So this 1 date, I think, is good enough. So basically, a scammer cannot add a backdated account age witness to the network. And with that, we can prove then the account age. So when a user makes an offer, he puts his account age witness into the offer. And with the account age witness, everybody can look up the date, and everybody can see that that the account was created 3 days ago or 3 months ago. Nobody can verify it at this point, because for verifying, you need to know the account data, like the IBAN number, and that's not available at the offer. That will be only exchanged when the trade happens. But when a taker takes the offer, then they're exchanging the account date, and then the taker will verify the account age witness from the maker. And if the maker would have faked this account age witness, the trade will fail. So it would not make sense for a maker to have a fake account age, because he cannot succeed to make a trade, and the offer without the trade doesn't create damage, and doesn't make sense. So that's the basic overview about this. And we want to extend this now by a new object, which has the similar technical basics, also with the state protection and so on. It just contains different data. It's the signed account age witness object, which contains the hash of the account age witness, the signature of the signer, the public key of the signer, and the public key of the owner of the account age witness, and the date. It starts with the arbitrators, or the arbitrators signing all these old users, old traders who have been in a dispute and who have done a fiat transfer. All this is only relevant for fiat transfers. And they are publishing this data. It gets added as well to this peer-to-peer network with this date stamping, so you cannot backdate this data. And everybody in the network will see then, okay, those users are basically trusted users, because they have been signed by the arbitrators that they have traded 2 months ago and there was no chargeback. Then we can extend this, that those users have the right to sign other traders. So when, let's say, the arbitrator has signed, I have traded and I got such a signature on my account age witness object, and Christoph is trading with me then, and he has a completely new account. When I have, or when the fiat transfer has been completed, when the trade has been completed, basically, I will sign Christoph account age witness object, which is completely new, just whatever, 1 day old, and I publish this data to the network. It doesn't have much value yet, because when it's just 1 day old, the signature and the account age, nobody knows if he's a chargeback scammer or not. But after 1 month or after a certain time, we can consider that Christoph's account is not a stolen bank account, because otherwise there would have been likely a chargeback. And because of the signature, because I have proven, or it's proven now that he has used the account, and it was not basically that he's not the scammer who has just signed up their account in Bisq but never used it for a real trade. So it was never detected for a chargeback. To avoid this risk, basically, we have now the solution that it's proven by another trader that he really used this account in a real trade. And when he would have been a chargeback scammer, it's very likely that it would have been detected in this time. So we get this extra security. There are a few extra complexities which I leave out to not make it too complicated, but in the proposal there is a further discussion about additional protection and features and so. But that's the basic. So it becomes a chain, and then after a certain time, Christoph, and there are certain parameters which are not defined yet, like the delay, what you need to wait until you get the right that you can sign another user. And if we only require one signature, or if you say one is not enough, you have to trade with minimum 2 or 3 users and get signed by a different one, and only then you have the right to sign. That all has to be defined. But basically, after Christoph has reached his threshold, and let's say there's maybe 2 trades required, and it takes 1 month, and he has traded 2 times and then reached 2 months with both, then he has the right to sign, and maybe then Steve is trading with a new account with Christoph, and then Christoph can sign Steve. And to verify all this, it goes always back the chain until the arbitrator signature. So when somebody wants to verify if Steve, after 1 month, is basically a valid user, a trusted user, he checks that Steve was signed by Christoph, then you check Christoph was signed by Manfred, and Manfred was signed by an arbitrator, so everything is okay. So we get a hierarchy, a chain of such signatures, and the public key. That's why we need also the public key of the witness owner, because that key creates the chain. When I'm signing Christoph witness, it contains the signature from Christoph, and when he uses it, then later it goes back the link to my signature, and then it can be proven that my witness was signed correctly, and so on. So it's not very different at the end to the way how the color coin works, with that you go back from a UTXO to the Genesis transaction or to an issuance transaction to determine if it's a valid BSQ. So here we are following back the chain until the root of the trust, which was provided by the arbitrators. For the arbitrators, we're using a little bit a different key, but that's a detail I don't want to explain here. So yeah, so I think that's pretty safe. How we use then this property, so we have then basically 2 different properties, or 3 maybe. One is that your accountage, like we have now, but that has this extra risk that the scammer theoretically could set up the account and just wait until it reaches a certain age and then go on scamming. So that's not super strong, but we can use it already. And we can use it mainly for delaying the payout, and additionally for increasing the buyer's security deposit. It's always the Bitcoin buyer on risk. So for the seller, we don't need to apply all this, but the Bitcoin buyer, when he has a young account, he has get this extra friction. When he got signed, also when he has really traded with somebody, even if he was the seller, it doesn't matter if he was the buyer or the seller, because we can assume that the scammer will not make a trade where he receives money on a stolen account, and that he will not use his own private account for receiving the money. I mean, that's very risky for him, and we can assume that's not the case. So we don't need to, we don't care if the buyer or the seller. Maybe the trade amount, maybe we put the trade amount into account, because it could be that the scammer make a very tiny trade with $10 and then sends the $10 to a stolen bank account and doesn't care about it, and with that would, but probably it doesn't work, because he could confirm it, because so maybe we have to add also the account, the trade amount. So only with a certain trade amount it counts. When it's tiny amounts, it doesn't count at the end. And the other property is how many others have signed you, or how many signatures you have from trusted traders, and how old those signatures are. And with that, we are creating a trust score. This trust score is then basically the abstraction to the user. For the user, it would become way too complicated to get all the details and make the right decision what they want to accept, because when a seller makes an offer, he needs to define then at the end if you want to trade with a buyer and then have a delayed payout, and then need to go a second time to the application after he received the money after a few weeks or so to make the delayed payout. And the security deposit is locked up in this time, as it has a lot of drawbacks for the seller as well. And the seller needs to make the decision if, what's basically what's his risk appetite, how much risk he's willing to take, and second, how much convenience price you want to pay for this. So we need to find usability. That's actually the biggest challenge in a way, to find a way that for the user it's easy to have something like 3 levels of trust, and new user, medium user, trusted user, and then he's defining, okay, I'm only want to trade with trusted user, or I'm okay to trust with new users, and then you get some information what are the consequences, that there's a delayed payout when the user is young and so on. So that's mainly a challenge on the usability side. But basically, this system can be extended in future, and we have a few other ideas which I explain a little bit later. And all this will end up as influence for this trust score, and the trust score is kind of like the layer in between the user and the user experience and all the technical systems which are estimating the trust or the risk exposure of the user. So that's the second idea, and with this we are avoiding this risk that the scammer could create an account without really trading, let it age, and then after a month he starts scamming, because he needs to make then a real trade. With a real trade, he will risk that he lose money. At the beginning, there is a long delay. With the delay, he has a high risk that he cannot cash out. There's a high security deposit where he really loses the money when it fails. So I think that adds too much risk for the scammer that he will go on using Bisq for this. And a third, very interesting, and I think very secure method is a kind of a certificate, as using third-party certificates to prove your identity. And in many countries, or in some countries in the European Union, like in Spain, it's very common. For instance, anything what you do with your tax authority, you have to do with this certificate. You get the certificate for free from the government. It's a KYC process. You have to go to an office and they check your ID and everything, and then you get the certificate issued by the government. It's basically similar like a certificate for a HTTPS webpage. And you can use this then to sign PDF files, and mainly used for governmental infrastructure like paying your taxes or whatever, and have access to this online webpage. But we can use this certificate to get added to your account, to your SEPA account. It only reveals your name, that's already there, and the ID, also the ID card number, so your national ID card number, which is a little bit an extra data which is at the moment not revealed, but I think it's not very critical because this ID number is often public anyway, so that's not a very private data. And it's optional anyway, also nobody need to do it, but people can basically add, when people are willing to do this, that they are adding their certificate to their payment account, then the trader can verify the certificate, and they can be sure that this person has done basically KYC and it's really this person, and with that get the best trust score. It's basically like doing KYC, but the benefit to normal KYC is that the issuer of the certificate has no clue about Bisq or Bitcoin or whatever. It's completely decoupled. So you are using this certificate, which were created for completely other reasons, and you are piggybacking on the security of that and using it then for Bisq to prove your identity. And I think that can be, that would be combined also with this trust system. So when you would have this, you have immediately 100% trust. I think that's the highest what you can gain. And for instance, you could immediately become a trusted signer. You don't need to wait 1 month. And especially market makers who are trading a lot, they can get a very, I mean, all this will have influence on the price. When you're a new user who have zero trust, you need to pay a higher price at the end on the market. When you're a market maker, you can benefit from this because you are basically providing then the entry point for trading. You are trading maybe with high risk new users, and you have to wait then 1 month for getting their security deposit paid out, and maybe a higher, when you're the buyer, at least a higher or no, when you are trusted, you don't have higher security deposit, but you are taking some disadvantages, at least the delayed payout when the other peer is the buyer, but you can earn money by better price. And so I think there are some incentives for some sort of traders to try to get this highest trust level, basically. We can earn more money by trading by this. And even if not all people are using this extra feature with certificate, it helps the whole system because there are more high trusted users, and the high trusted users can help others to get more quickly signed and distribute trust to the system more quickly. So those are the main ideas. I mean, one problem with this is, and I would like to discuss it with Florian, is that it's not trivial to implement this certificate infrastructure. It's usually integrated in the operating system, the key management for this, and that to make this work on all operating systems, that might be a challenge. I'm not experienced with this. Hopefully Florian, and he can give an estimation if that's super complex or doable. And it, for sure, so that's something what we cannot do in the next 2 weeks or so. That will take longer time, but I think we should look into this close. I mean, the other problem or open question is how far it's distributed. In some country, maybe it's not much used and people don't want to extra get the certificate to use it in Bisq. But yeah, it's optional anyway, and it's standardized in Europe. I mean, another question is how it's in different parts in the world. Probably it's not internationally standardized, so might add an additional complexity for implementation when there are different ways which type of certificates to use and how they're managed and so on. So that might be the biggest challenge, is basically that the implementation side, and then the usability or the acceptance side from the users. But I think it's actually kind of like a KYC, but it's a KYC which doesn't have all these disadvantages that the company, the exchange is holding then the KYC data and can get stolen, and that the users are losing the privacy because the company knows all about your Bitcoin trades, because it's completely decoupled, and your trading peer knows anyway about you with the name and the bank account. So you don't lose anything really. Maybe this national identity number is the only additional privacy loss, but I think that's not really a big issue. In some countries, it's anyway part, like in Brazil, you need it. You cannot make and in Chile, I think, you cannot make a bank transfer without this. Yeah, so I think with all these three, I think the first two projects we're working already, and we hope we can deploy it hopefully next week. I mean, the second with the distributed reputation is a little bit more complex, and especially the UI. The biggest challenge is how to do it on the UI set, that's not too confusing and too difficult for the users. And also, yeah, the whole concept, how to set the parameters right, it all requires quite a little bit of discussion and thinking. So yeah, that's it more or less. Do you have any question or comments on this?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think the third one you mentioned regarding to be able to do this KYC is quite important, because otherwise, so at the moment the friction we had so far was the deposit. You need the Bitcoin, you need to trade Bitcoin, and now with the time delay, there could be the risk that we are losing liquidity because we have so high security. And if the only way to kind of circumvent that is to use a BSQ bond, that's again a very high amount or a bigger amount that needs to be put down. So I think if we want to have also users in the system with lower amounts who doesn't trade a lot, then we need this kind of alternative certification where they don't have to put down so much money to be able to trade on Bisq. Yeah. In Austria, we have also, it's called the Bürgerkarte, where you can sign PDFs, for example, with your certificate.
And is it widely used also? Is it kind of like...
you can use it for your finance, to fill in your taxes. You can use it for voting on kind of petitions. So you can use it for your health insurance platform. So you can use it on multiple places, and I think because you can use it that much, people more and more use it and have it available. So it's getting more common. And next year, I think we even get the driving license, so that will give it another push for people to have this Bürgerkarte, it's called in Austria, as well activated. So it's getting more and more common, at least in Austria.
Is it free? Is it free?
I think. Sorry.
It's
free
free
in Austria?
It's free. You can also, if you have registered at Finance Online, that's the kind of the tax platform, then you can activate the Bürgerkarte on your finance platform. If not, then you can do it, I think, over the postal service as well, or you just go to some branch of the Social Security service and can do it there for free. Yeah, it's always for free.
Oh, okay, because
Yeah,
I'm doing the research for this. I will put up a proposal, and from what I've seen at this moment is that there is a very strong legal standard for the whole European Union, and it is also there is also a technical standard with libraries, open source, and all that. So that would make easy the legal thing and the development thing for this. The thing that is harder for me to find is if it is free in different countries. I know it's free in Spain. Now I know it is free in Austria, but I'm not sure. It is quite difficult to find that information in other countries. So maybe I'll try to search further, but maybe the community could help on that. I've seen though that there is some private certification authorities that are rather cheap, like 22 euros a year. But it would be obviously best that is if it is free in most countries. So that would make easy for people to use it. And for example, here in Spain, using the digital certificate, it is very convenient for just signing any document and not exposing your, like scanning your handwritten signature, and everybody has your signature. With the digital signature, it is much more secure and you don't have to print, sign, and then make a photo. That's really clunky. So people are beginning, at least in Spain, to use it a lot for just signing and not having to print and make a picture and all that.
Yeah. I think in most countries it will be for free. Yeah, if it's I didn't know that this is a kind of is opposed by the European Union, so that the people have to, the countries have to implement it. But I guess I would be quite surprised if it's not for free in most of the European countries.
What I, from my research, what I can say for sure is that there is a legal background that if the certification authority and the technical certificate complies with the requirements of the European Union, then all European Union states are obliged to accept it as valid. So, there is a list of the certification authorities on the European Union webpage. I'll post it on my proposal in GitHub, and you will see that there are a lot, and there is a legal requirement, and all countries have put that law in their local regulations, that they are obliged to accept any. For example, if you have a digital certificate that is compliant with the European Union in Austria, it must be valid in Spain, in France, in all the countries, because it is compliant as of the European Union.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah, it would be really interesting how hard this would be to. As I only know there's an online service, but they don't have an API which could be reused for verifying the signature. I verified signatures myself already, and it worked. But yeah, I guess there might be some, as you said, some open source libraries for certifying the signatures in a standardized way.
So let's see if it is useful to cover all SEPA activity. or including Revolut on European activity, Revolut, SEPA.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how it is in the US, if they have this kind of state-opposed digital certificates, because I think Cell is the second biggest market, or the Bitcoin US dollar market on the fiat trades is the second biggest market. So it would be interesting if it works there as well. Yeah, or if there's a solution.
Yeah, that would be actually quite important. Maybe Steve, if you have any chance or know anybody to research a little bit in this direction, if there exists something similar. I mean, this trust score system would be flexible anyway. So when, like for instance, Jumio is such a private KYC provider where you can make many exchanges are using them, where you make the KYC and they give you basically a certificate. I'm just not sure how much consumer oriented they are. I think that's only business to business and would not work with BISC, that who will pay for it, and BISC is not a company who can make a contract with them. And probably people don't want to pay for it, but maybe when it's really cheap and you can make it for $20, then it might be an option that some private companies are doing this KYC, basically give you the certificate, you're adding this and it's disconnected. They will not learn about BISC, and I'm just a little bit worried how secure they are then. Like also with getting a certificate for the web page is not so difficult, and there have been scams with this. So the cheaper, the less secure it gets usually, and then it doesn't really add much value. I think this governmental infrastructure is probably pretty secure. You have to go physically somewhere. You cannot do it just by showing a password in a tool, and not automated system. So it's a more manual, probably more secure system. Yeah, BSCoupon, as Christoph mentioned, would be another tool to buy reputation, basically. So when a new user who get all these drawbacks want to trade more quickly, more conveniently, he can decide, yeah, he lock up 10,000 BSQ for 3 months, and with that, basically, he provides that he's not a scammer, and when he would be a scammer, this BSQ can be confiscated. Maybe we will add other features, so the system should be basically flexible and open to anything what can add trust and is reflected then in your trust score. And the UI and the trade protocol, or the way how the amount of the security deposit and the delay and so are determined are only depending on this number at the end from the trust score. But how the trust score is created and what was the influence to give you a good or a low trust score is decoupled. I think that's very important for the concept of this, to not create too much dependency. Otherwise, it will become a too complicated and unmanageable system. And we need a lot of flexibility because globally there will be many differences, and for sure in other countries you need to use completely different systems, and yeah, we need to have a way to plug it in. I mean, technically there will be probably a challenge that those services providing the certificate data, they will probably don't have onion services, so the users cannot connect directly, but we can do the same like we have with the Relay Enterprise node, that there is a node operator who is routing this request. So the BISC user make a request to this onion service, and they are then going over HTTP to the provider of the data and get the data and forward it back over to the user. Of course, we need to make sure that this provider cannot cheat and will be a bonded role and so, but maybe we'll find some extra security that he could not change anything of the data, that it's really 100% guaranteed that the data is just routed through. It's probably anyway TLS connection, and maybe we can route the whole TLS through to it, and so that the node only see encrypted data and could not manipulate anything. But that's another small technical aspect and maybe a small challenge for this system. Oscar, are you familiar with anything like this, or do you know if there is anything in your region, anything similar? I think you are muted.
Yeah. In Argentina, there's digital signature law, but it's not very used in practice. So yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, Argentinian users won't be able to benefit from something like this.
Yeah, hopefully we get this out as soon as possible, also the first two parts at least, and that it doesn't hurt too much usability. Of course, when we lose now all the traders, it's also secure when nobody's trading, but that's also not the plan. But I think it's, I mean, with this, yeah, when we gain real security, when it's not only that it's too much friction for the scammer to use BISC, but when it's really basically has no chance to succeed, or the friction gets so high that he will not use it. I mean, 100% security is nowhere, and it's also with the normal KYC, there are scams, and especially the cheaper KYC, where you just do everything online, what most exchanges are doing. I think there are always ways to scam this with stolen passports and so on. And yeah, and then you have zero security when you follow the classical path as well. So yeah, I think as long as we are getting good enough with this, that there is not more like one chargeback scam a year, I think I think we can consider it secure. And yeah, I mean, of course, chargebacks are not like the one or two cell chargebacks. At least the first chargeback what we had on cell, it was never 100% clear, but it was very likely that it was not a stolen bank account scammer. It was just somebody called the bank and want to get back the money, and he received it. So it was not the stolen bank account. It was just a fraudulent trader who managed to convince the bank to send back the money. That's a completely different story, and that will. I mean, those are not so risky because they're usually not repeating it. Because when such a scammer is doing it 3 times with the bank will flag him and will tell, "Hey, what's going on with you? Why you're making always wrong transfers and then want back the money, and we're blocking you." So otherwise, the bank is colluding basically with the scammer, and we have to deactivate this payment method like we did it with Cash App and Venmo, where it's super easy to make a chargeback. But I think that's not a real risk with the payment methods what we have. Maybe it happens once a year or something like this, but I think that's kind of like in the risk exposure, but Bitcoin traders are probably aware anyway when they're dealing with Bitcoin that there is some risk when you're dealing with fiat. But this, this systematic stolen bank account scammer who is cashing out several accounts in series, that's a real big problem, and we need to stop this. Otherwise, would not work BISC. Goody. Anything else what anybody want to discuss, or another topic for the technical session? I mean, on Thursday I cannot join. In my way, I'm offline. But when it's more general topic, we can discuss it on the growth call. When you have any technical, let me know.
Just a small comment from my side. I'm finishing integration with Bitcoin Share 15. So I'll probably create a pull request very soon. Once that is merged, we can work on Segwit support on this queue.
Cool, yeah. Unfortunately, I will not have time the next weeks to donate anything in any other areas. So apologize for not being more following more the development. Great that you make so much progress already. We need to test it very well. Will be a big change and carry for sure some risk with using a completely new library. But great milestone as well then reached. Another delay will be with the API, so I will not have time to donate any time on this. So when Bernard can continue on his own, it's welcome, but I cannot do any review and any help for the next month for sure. So this chargeback problem has the highest priority, and yeah. Goodie. Then let's wrap up. Is nothing else? And if anybody has some ideas, feel free to add your comments to the proposals, to discuss it there when you see any problems, any weak points, any suggestions to improve, especially on the Think a Big challenge will be the UI part. Christoph will make a proposal on the concept, how we deal with it to make it as painless for the users to deal with this system, and how we how the factors get applied to different properties like the security deposit and the delay and so on. Goodie, then let's wrap it up. Have a good evening or day, and see you next week. I can 2 weeks probably. I cannot make the call. Okay, see you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye, Manfred. Bye, guys.